Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to Austria once again for the first time in what feels like a good long while. But I should also point out that this brewery has a very strong connection to Slovenia as well, who we have also not visited on the channel for quite a while. But this brewery has featured on the channel several times before. If memory serves me correctly, this will be my 8th or so review involving these guys. We've had a number of styles from them over the years and they've always been pretty damn solid. Now, the beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I very much enjoy. I've heard very good things about this particular beer from various different people, and it's also a style that I've not had from this brewery yet. So I have to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. So hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to a little place called Bad Radkersburg, which is in the Steiermark region of Austria, right on the Austro-Slovenian border. And we're going to have a look at another beer from Brauhaus Bevog, or Bevog Brewery, as they might also be known. So yeah, this particular beer is called Hagger. It comes in at 12.2% ABV, and this one is a barrel-aged American-style barley wine. So yeah, the beer itself is mainly bourbon barrel-aged from what I understand, but there is a blend of other barley wines in there as well that have been aged in different spirit casks, I guess we could say. But this particular version is the 2021 version, and they release a new one every year from what I understand. But yeah, this beer appeared here in Sweden as part of the Tillfälligt assortment through Systembolaget, the temporary releases, and it cost me about 129 Swedish kroner. So that translates to roughly 13 euros, somewhere in the region of like £11 sterling, and I guess about $15 American. So a little bit more kind of pricey in things, but from what I understand, that actually is a little bit cheaper than you would get this beer for down in either Slovenia or Austria. So that is actually quite interesting, I have to say. I'm not sure why this beer is a little bit cheaper up here than it is down there. Maybe it's just because Systembolaget is not for profit, but even then the importer has to take a little bit of a share of that to make some money. But yeah, this should be very interesting. I've heard that this is an awesome beer, so certainly nice to return to Bevog once again and to review this beer for you on the channel finally. So yeah, let's see how we got on with this one then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Brauhaus Bevog or Bevog Brewery, whatever you want to call them before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is that happens to take your fancy. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Slovenian beers that I've reviewed for you, and one for all the Austrian ones. I'll put this beer in both of those lists because, you know, it is kind of dual nationality, I guess we could say. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Brauhaus Bevog, Bevog Brewery, whatever you want to call them. So, Bevog was founded back in 2013 by the Slovenian Vasja Golar. So he had worked in the family electronics business for a number of years, and he was at a fair in Belgium where he says he discovered, you know, what beer could actually be. It wasn't simply, you know, just fizzy lager and things like this. So when he returned to Slovenia, he learned that there were actually possibilities to make better beer, and so he really got into homebrewing. He homebrewed for a long time in his garage, and he's mainly a self-taught brewer, but he also took a short course in Germany as well. So the brewery itself is located in Bad Radkersburg in the Steiermark region, in the kind of central southern part of Austria, right on the Slovenian border, and this place is just a very small village of about 1,300 people, but it's a little bit to the southeast of Graz and a bit to the northeast of Maribor. So yeah, Marriott, Slovenia to the south, Austria kind of to the north, if you like. I think that's a basic way to put it. But the village sits on the Mur River, which separates Austria and Slovenia, and the town is twinned with the village of Gornja Radgona, which is Vasja's hometown on the Slovenian side. Apparently you can just walk across the bridge and go there. So when I do go down to Slovenia and Croatia later on this year, I might actually see about going across to Austria and having a little look at Bad Radkersburg and the Bevog brewery. But Vasja said that he chose to open his brewery in Austria because of the problems with bureaucracy in Slovenia, and Bad Radkersburg was only 3 kilometres away from his hometown. But the brewery are based in the industrial area of the town, just a short walk from the centre, and you can drink beer on site from what I understand. When I had a little look at the opening times, it seems that they open up from about lunchtime until 6 p.m. every day. But these days they employ around 15 people and they brew around 500,000 litres of beer per year. And as of April 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 80 different kinds of beer. But yeah, that is all I can tell you about Brauhaus Bevog for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that is everything for your history section in this video. Let's get on and have a little look at the beer itself. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open up. I believe this beer, this kind of design of the bottle is a little bit new. I haven't actually seen it like this before. It used to be in like a tall bottle with a bag or something around it, if I remember correctly. I'm sure Davor will be in the comments section to let me know about that. So of course, with my, as I always do with my Slovenian reviews, massive shout out to Davor Širitz, who is the OG beer mule on the channel. He has supplied the vast majority of the Slovenian beers that have been reviewed here on Rampant Lion Reviews. But yeah, beautifully presented this one. The volume of this beer is 330 millilitres, so 1/3 of a litre. Don't know what that is in American units, and I'm not even going to try. But yeah, it says on the back here, Hagger is a blend of selected barrel-aged barley wine. The complex aroma and taste of dried fruit, dark and sweet caramel, vanilla, coconut, cocoa, slight roast and berries is a product of a complex brewing technique combined with the carefully monitored maturation in oak barrels. The bulk of it is bourbon barrel aged, and the rest can be aged in other spirit barrels. So yeah, maybe they'll have put a little bit of like rum and cognac barrel aged barley wine into this one as well, but it is worth pointing out, mainly bourbon barrel aged, but there is a blend of other things in there as well. But yeah, very nicely presented, this beer, and as I said, this one cost me 130 Swedish kronor, so about 13 euros, which I think is cheaper than you would pay down in Austria or Slovenia. But let me know in the comments section below if that's right. But you can see it's got this lovely cork top on it. I don't think we need to say anything else about the appearance of the bottle and stuff, so let's get it out and we can have a little look at the beer. So this will just take a wee minute to open up. But yeah, the main thing between an American barley wine and an English barley wine for me is that the American ones tend to be a little bit kind of sweeter and juicier, actually. So yeah, that tends to be the main difference for me. I'm just wondering, maybe, are we going to have to pause the video and open this one? My bottle opener is just over there, so just 1 second. I think this beer is not going to open itself. Alright guys, so it actually turned out I just wrapped my t-shirt around it and twisted it and it worked. So yeah, don't need to, so a little pause there, but it should be okay. But yeah, there you can see the nice cork, of course. But let's get this guy out and into the glass and see how we go. Very, very curious about this, as I said. So, there we are. This is pretty awesome, I have to say. This looks pretty. This looks really damn nice, I have to say. So, there we go. That's all of it out and into the glass. So, before the head disappears on this one, because it's a high alcohol beer, it will do that quite quickly. You can see that this beer has poured with a 1/4 finger of a frothy, I would say kind of very light beige, sort of fawn coloured head. That's fading away just to be a very thin foamy layer, but you have a nice kind of foamier ring around the edge of the glass there. But overall, it does look really nice. There are 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, but a few little ones. going up toward the bottom of the head there, but overall it does look really nice. Not much in the way of visible carbonation in this beer, I have to say, but yeah, in terms of what you would expect from a barley wine, I have to say the appearance of this is pretty good. So the colour of this one is definitely a nice big, I would say it's a nice very dark, would you say really dark chestnut? I think that's fair to say. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar is caramelised, thus you get a darker colour of beer. Barley wines quite often have very long wort boils, you know, at least 6 hours, sometimes even longer. And going by the colour of this one, I think this has had a pretty damn long wort boil, to be honest with you. But yeah, any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put in can also affect the colour of your beer. And so in this case, perhaps there might be a little bit of coloration from the barrel aging as well, particularly if there's been, like, you know, cognac barrels and things used. Cognac barrel aging, I think, is the one I found that affects the colour most, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think most of the colour in this one will be coming from the types of malt and the length of the wort boil. You can kind of tell with this one, if you look at the lacing when you sugar the beer up, this is pretty damn thick actually, so I think it's had a very long wort boil, of course. So big caramelised sugars out of this one, I'm sure, and I could smell that just when I was pouring the beer as well. But yeah, in terms of what you would expect appearance wise from a barley wine, this one certainly isn't out with the realms of possibilities. So yeah, I do like how this beer goes about its business in that sense. So yeah, nothing else to say about the appearance. I think we should have a little look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one then. Oh man, I'm just going to say straight away, that smells absolutely beautiful. Yeah, I absolutely love barley wines. You know, these big, as you know if you've watched the channel for any length of time, you know, big brown sugary beers always just hit the spot for me. So Scotch ales, doppelbocks, quadruples, some of the barley wines as well, old ales, stock ales, all of these kind of things. I really love these kinds of beer, and that was one of the other attractions that made me get this beer, because I know the brewery and I heard good things, and it is a style that I very much enjoy. I love these big boozy brown sugar leaning beers, and you can tell straight away this one is going to be exactly like that. So yeah, the aroma of this one is just pretty damn awesome. So you've got a lovely big smooth oaky backbone in this beer. Yeah, you can smell that lovely smooth oaky character right away. There's a whole host of things going on in the woody infused side of the beer as well. So you've got the lovely smooth oaky character, definitely a wee bit of vanilla in there. You can smell some of the brown sugar from the bourbon barrels, absolutely. But I suspect there's a wee bit of cognac barrel aging in there as well. You can just smell some of that sort of red, fruity character. It's got a little bit of that kind of datey, pruny sort of thing mixing in with the wood as well. There might well be a little touch of rum barrel aging in there as well. I think the vanilla has shown a wee slightly kind of sugar caney, fudgy type note as well, and that's all just within the kind of woody backbone of the beer. We're not even talking about the actual malty side of the beer yet, but the woody side of things comes across very nicely. So I'm pretty sure there's bourbon, cognac, and a little bit of rum barrel aging in here. You can just smell it. I don't think, I doubt there's any wine to this one. If there is a bit of wine barrel aging in this one, it would be a little touch of red wine. But yeah, the woody side of this beer is absolutely beautiful. No doubt in my mind about that. But yeah, I really like how this beer goes about its business. Absolutely. So, yeah. What else can we say about this one then? So on the malty side of things, you're going to get a big, oily, brown, sugary hit out of this one. And for me, the main difference between the English and American barley wines, as I've said, is that the English ones tend to have a more roasty, toasty, brown, sugary character to them, whereas the American ones have a big, oily, kind of sweet note. The English ones also tend to have like a sort of dry, fruity character and sometimes a little bit of a phenolic note, whereas the American ones are big and oily and sweet in their red, fruity character. But this is absolutely, from the aroma, you can tell that this is absolutely an American barley wine. But let's look at the malty side of this beer. So, for me, there's a lovely big kind of treacle molasses sort of thing to this one, that big highly caramelized brown sugar. You definitely get a bit of sweeter caramel on top of it, absolutely. There's a few kind of nutty notes in there as well, like, you know, pecans and pralines and stuff like this. You certainly do have a little bit of that. They were saying on the label that they get cocoa and coconut out of this. I don't really get that, I have to say. For me, this is just a big treacle, molasses, caramel sort of character in there, but there are a few nutty notes as well. So yeah, definitely a wee bit of a kind of praline, like pecan sort of note to this one. Absolutely. Maybe like a teeny little bit of an almost tobacco-y note as well, which is kind of interesting. But it's a beautiful smelling beer nonetheless. The malty side of this one is, you know, absolutely lovely. Yeah, definitely got a wee bit of vanilla coming out of it too, but that's mixed in with the wood. A lot of the complexity, I think, that you get out of this is kind of sitting within that woody infused part of the beer. But overall, it is just, it is really, really nice. It gets a big thumbs up from me in that sense. On the hoppy side of things, on the hoppy side of the beer, I don't think we need to say anything more really about the malty side of the beer. So the thing is, with this being barrel aged, most of the hoppy character will have dropped out of this one. But you can still smell the remnants of it a little bit. There's like a teeny little bit of earthiness there. You get a little bit of a smooth floral character, and also a wee bit of a kind of, you get a little bit of a kind of grassiness in there. It's got a bit of an oily, grassy character to it, which I do quite like. But yeah, the green component for me, the more that you smell of it, the more you smell the beer, the more you notice it. I think that's definitely fair to say. But this is absolutely lovely. Beautiful aroma to it, this beer. Everything that I would want, but you guys know I'm a big sucker for these brown sugary, these big brown sugary beers. On the fruity side of things then, on the fruity side of things, you definitely have a mix of that. You do get some of these nice kind of dried fruity characters. For me, there's almost a little bit of cakiness comes out of this beer when I concentrate on the fruits. You get a little bit of that, like, you know, fruit loaf kind of thing, like fruit bread. You do get a wee bit of that out of this beer. So within that, there's definitely a little bit, you definitely get a little bit of that sharp plummy character, that oily plum. There's a wee bit of a dry kind of datey note underneath as well. Prunes, absolutely. I get a wee bit of a more oily and juicy fig, and definitely some like black currant and blackberry out of the beer as well. These are all things that you would come to expect from a barley wine. So yeah, you've got a good balance between the kind of lighter, drier fruits in there, and also the more kind of big, oily sort of ones as well. But yeah, the way that this goes together, I think, is very, very nice. So it gets a big thumbs up from me for sure. Yeah, I do like it. I like how this beer goes about its business. Absolutely beautiful aroma, and especially with big barley wines like this, you do want to take a little bit of time to just enjoy that aroma before you get stuck into them. But I think it's about time that we had a taste of this beer. So yeah, this one is the Hagger 2021 blend, a barrel aged, we should say, American style barley wine from Brauhaus Bevog, Bevog Brewery in Bad Radkersburg in Steiermark, in the very south of Austria, right next to the Slovenian border. Let's get stuck into this one. Slanje, skål, cheers, prost, na zdravje. Cheers. Yeah, that's pretty damn special, I have to say. Beautiful, beautiful tasting beer. This is one of these ones, this is going to take a wee bit of time to just kind of open up and appreciate, and that's one of the reasons why I like doing these longer sit down reviews, especially when you've got big beasts like this. They just take a little bit of time to kind of open up. But yeah, flavour wise, this is just, first impression of it is it's a big, oily, woody, smooth and vanilla kind of barley wine. Yeah, this is absolutely lovely, this one. It's very, very slick, just big and thick. I do really like how this one goes together actually. It's a big, it gets a massive, massive thumbs up from me. If you like a barley wine, you will enjoy this one. What I will say about this one though is you can really tell it has this big leathery texture to it. That's had an extremely long wort boil, but I kind of suspected that from how dark the colour is with this one. That's, you know, that's maybe an overnight wort boil or something like that, just looking at how dark this beer is. Even if you shine the light through it, you don't get much in the way of like ruby hint or anything like that. It's very, very dark. It's almost like a kind of Coca-Cola colour, this beer, to be honest with you. I think that's fair to say. But yeah, very, very nice. Yeah. All right then. So, where do we start with this beer? Yeah, middle third of your palate then. This beer is actually kind of as I described from the aroma, to be honest with you. So the backbone of that middle third of your palate is absolutely that big, smooth, oaky character. That forms the backbone of the beer. So you can feel that. Toward the front of that middle third of your palate, you start to get a little bit of vanilla out of it, absolutely. And there's a wee bit of that, you know, you can feel that this beer is mainly bourbon barrel aged, but as you go further into the aftertaste, if you just focus on the woody base of the beer, you start to get these other little complexities to it. So you've got the smooth oaky wood, a little bit of vanilla toward the front of the middle third of your palate, then on top of that you have a wee bit of the kind of bourbon. You do have a little bit of the kind of bourbon brown sugars coming out of it. So yeah, you can taste the kind of bourbon brown sugar in there, but then so you get that kind of thin layer of bourbon brown sugar, but just within that kind of woody barrel aged layer, you get a little circle forming on top of that, and you can feel. You do get a little bit of, particularly mixing in with the kind of vanilla side of the beer further forward, I do think there's a wee touch of rum. You do get a little bit of that kind of brown rum sugar coming out of this one, which is nice. But then on top of that, you're absolutely getting a little bit of, you're absolutely getting a little bit of a, how would we say, you're getting a little bit of a kind of that cognac, that fruity kind of character from the cognac in there. So there's a wee bit of that dry kind of datey, pruny type vibe, just mixed in with all the bourbon sugars and stuff. So it's really interesting. The woody dimension of this beer, I think, is the thing that's really sticking there with it, and I really do like how that goes together. So as I say, this beer gets a big thumbs up from me. The woody barrel aged side of this beer is really nice. These ones that are always blended and put together are always really interesting. It's a whole, blending beer is a whole art itself. You know, the Belgians with the lambic beers very often do this. So yeah, doing it with barley wines and the more American styles of beers like imperial stouts and stuff like this is also very, very interesting. But beautiful, beautiful beer, I have to say. So, yeah, I think that covers everything we need to say about the kind of barrel aged side of the beer. But yeah, it works really nicely. So on top of that woody layer then, this is when you start to notice the actual malty side of the beer. So for me, there's just, on top of that, you've got this big, thick, you have this big, thick brown sugary treacle molasses sort of thing there. So in the very centre of your palate, it's quite concentrated and you can feel the booziness of the beer. But then as you move further out from that centre of your palate and go out toward the edges, it does gradually get a little bit sweeter. But yeah, you've got, so the woody layer with all those infused flavours that I was talking about, then you've got a very dense, thick treacle molasses layer. But if you go on top of that, in the dead centre of your palate, you get a little touch of a sweet caramel. And as you move further out from that, you start to get a little bit more of a kind of, you get a little touch of like a butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing, but then you almost get a wee hint of a biscuity note as you go to the extremities of that middle third of your palate. But then within those brown sugary layers, as you move further forward on the palate, you'll start to get a few kind of nutty characters out of this one. You'll start to get like a little bit of a pecan, almond, praline sort of thing out of this one. You're getting all these kind of nutty notes toward the front of that middle third of your palate inside the brown sugary layer. So I do like how that goes together as well. Absolutely, this is a really interesting beer from that perspective. So yeah, you do get a little bit, the other thing you're going to notice is that toward the back of that middle third of your palate, you do get a little hint of an almost leathery character to this beer, which is a sort of that's one of the things you get when you do such a long wort boil. And as I say, I suspect this one has had a very, very long wort boil, just looking at the colour of the beer itself. But yeah, you do get a little bit of a kind of leathery character to this one toward the back of that middle third of your palate, so that gets a big thumbs up from me as well. Yeah, awesome stuff. But yeah, the way that goes together is really, really nice. That middle third of the palate is really nicely done. So I think we can go on to the back third of the palate then and see how we go. So on that border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of a kind of almost bready build up. It feels a little bit like that kind of fruit cakey, fruit loaf sort of thing I was talking about earlier. So the base of the back third of the palate, again, you get that nice smooth woody character there, although it feels a little bit drier. On top of that, you do get a little bit of that kind of fruit cakey, rolly sort of thing, and then you can feel some of the brown sugars pushing in toward the back third of the palate too. So you've got a little bit of a kind of leathery, slightly dry layer on top of that. So yeah, bit of a woody dryness, a kind of cakey, sort of cakey, bready type note in there as well, like a kind of booze infused cakey sort of thing. Then on top of that, you get the drier side of the brown sugary notes, and on top of that, there is a wee bit of a kind of yeasty character as well. So I really do like the different layers of this beer and how everything goes together. Really interesting. Yeah, this is pretty cool. Yeah, the yeasty side of this beer is quite interesting. For me, it's like a kind of dense. It is like a bit of, you take a fruity bread character and you just make it really dense and then put a wee bit of sweet brown sugar on the outside of it. That's what the yeasty side of this beer really is like for me. So on the back third of the palate, you can feel the flavour is a little bit taller, but then as you come further forward, the flavours just densify a little bit and push together. So I do like how the beer goes about its business in that particular regard. Yeah, really interesting. Interesting combination of things in this beer. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the barley-aged malty side of things. But of course, that is the most complex thing when it comes to these big barley wines. But yeah, on the on the hoppy side of the beer then. So back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it smoothens out very, very quickly, and you can feel the remnants of a sort of floral aromaticity to the beer, which I can certainly appreciate. But as I say, when it's a barrel-aged beer, most of the hoppy character will have dropped out of this one. Do remember that a Barleywine is basically the big brother of a double IPA. Pale ales, IPAs, double IPAs and Barleywines are all related by their hop to malt ratio. From what I understand, the triple IPA is basically just more malt and thus more alcohol, and it basically uses the double IPA hop to malt ratio, whereas these obviously are a lot more malty, the barley wines. But yeah, the hoppy side of this beer, you do get a little bit of that floral aromaticity to it as well. I'd be very curious to know what hops they've used in this one, because obviously the Slovenians have their own hop varieties, the Austrians do as well, so maybe there are a few hop varieties in this one that we haven't come across before. But regardless, around the front curve of the palate, you do get a little bit of a lighter grassy sort of thing, but I think it's most definitely fair to say that the green component in this beer is pretty damn oily. So, on the fruity side of things then, the front third of your palate, let's focus on that. So the border region between middle third and front third of your palate, again you get a little bit of a bready build up in there. You've got a little bit of a sort of cakey sort of thing to it as well. You've got that nice kind of cakey, bready sort of vibe to it, but then the base of that front third of your palate, again you get a bit of the cakey kind of bready sort of thing, but there's also a nice woody character to it also. And then on top of that, you get that nice oily, fruity sort of thing, which I very, very much enjoy. Yeah, I think that goes together really, really nicely. yeah, so the fruity side of the beer then, let's focus on that. This is just a big boozy beer. I can feel the 12.2% going to my head already. It's quite nice, I have to say that. It is quite nice. I always enjoy just sitting down and enjoying a barley wine sometimes. It's actually, it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday. I finished all my work for the week, so it was just a case of why not. But yeah, the fruity side of things then, let's focus on that. So, when we take the beer in, you do get a nice little bit of that sharper kind of plummy, raisiny note to it, so you can feel that toward the back there. But as you go down toward the base of that front third of your palate, you know, you get a little bit of a more kind of pruny sort of vibe to it. I certainly get a wee bit of a kind of like sultana, you know, dried white green grape. There's a lot of that going on in there. There's kind of dates as you move further forward, and that's just in the back half of the front third of your palate. When you move into the front half of the front third of your palate, for me, you get a bit more of an oily fig in there, and as you reach the kind of front tip of your tongue, you can feel that nice kind of black curranty character. But then on top of that, there's a more oily blackberry, and the sweeter side of the fruits really lingers there into the aftertaste. But yeah, the way that this goes together is very, very nice. So it gets a big thumbs up from me, this one. I think they've done an awesome job with this. But yeah, this is just a lovely barley wine, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. Awesome stuff, actually. If they can do a barley wine like this, I'd love to see them have a go at like a Doppelbock or a quadruple or a Scotch ale or something like that. They obviously have a knack for doing these big brown sugary beers. It's got that lovely smoothness to it. And so on that note, we'll round off the review with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So undoubtedly this is a full-bodied beer. There's no question about that. Yeah, so this is it is absolutely a big kind of full-bodied beer, this one. Carbonation is very, very smooth, big and silky, but it's got a degree of slickness to it as well. Just absolutely lovely. There's no doubt in my mind that this is a full-bodied beer. So in terms of the the hoppy bitterness and things like that from this one, I think this is fairly low, to be honest with you. I'd be surprised if this is any more than, you know, like 25 or 30 IBUs. The green component is pretty smooth, and, you know, with a barley wine, especially when it's barley aged, most of the hoppy character is going to drop out, but you can get the remnants of the earthiness and floral character, as I said. But the malty and barrel aged side of this beer is very nice. It's very, very smooth. You get a little bit of dryness out of it, and there is a degree of sweetness that builds and builds the further you go into the aftertaste. But big oily, yeah, lovely big oily sweetness to this one. From the fruity side of things, you've got a bit of dried fruit in there, a bit more of an oily sweet fruit, but absolutely this beer is a big American style barley wine. I really, really like how this one goes about its business. So yeah, massive thumbs up from me. Undoubtedly the best Bevog beer that I've had, but that doesn't take anything away. It shouldn't take anything away from the other beers that I've had from these guys in the past. I've always been impressed with what Bevog have been doing, and they've got a reputation, and as you can see from beers like this, that reputation is there for a reason. But yeah, I think we should leave it at that for this one. So yeah, this was the 2021 edition of the Hagger, an American style barley wine, barrel aged at 12.2% ABV from Bevog Brewery, Brauhaus Bevog, whatever you want to call them, in Bad Radkersburg in Steiermark in Austria, but a Slovenian owned brewery, of course, Vasia Golar. So yeah, this has been an awesome review. I've very much enjoyed this one, and not just because the beer is very strong. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed it as well. As always, let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Brauhaus Bevog. Do give me some Slovenian brewery recommendations and some Austrian ones, and we will no doubt return to both of these countries at some point in the future, and I'm sure we will review some more beers from Bevog at some time very soon too. But yeah, thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Check out my social media, check out Bevog's social media, and I'll see you guys in the next one. This was the Hagger American Style Barley Wine. Slàinte, skål, cheers, prost, and na zdravie. Cheers.